Fast, easy, cheap, and messy. That sounds like a great Friday night to me. Are all golf balls balanced? No, they are not. There are two ways that you can use to test the balance of the golf ball. Well, I guess there's three. One, you just don't care. But you can use this check-go, modern way of checking the balance and spin axis of your golf ball, or you can use the old school method of Epsom salts. So, which one is better and more accurate?
Be the right club today. Yes!
What's going on, guys? G2 here with 3-Putt Bogey, and today we're going to talk about the balance of golf balls. And we've done a video on this earlier. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to link it here. Good information in there, but this is going to be a little bit more inclusive of the two methods that you can use and which one works better. And you're probably asking yourself, why would I listen to Greg? What does he know? Believe it or not, back in the day, I was actually trained by Ralph Malpe in golf club repair and alteration, and all things included within that. And one of the biggest things that Ralph Malpe would do was stress the importance of a balanced golf ball. And his method that he used was Epsom salts. So I see a lot of videos out there, and they are like 65% right, and the 35% they're wrong is the worst 35% because they're telling you the wrong information on how to make an imbalanced golf ball perform as good as it could on the course. So we're going to fix that issue right here and there. And then also the check-go. Check-go is one of the modern methods to use. This thing goes on Amazon right now for, I want to say, about anywhere between $40 and $50. It's been around for a while in some variation. This is the newest variation. Back when I apprenticed with Ralph Malpe, these both were out. And the master went with the Epsom salts instead of this. And I'm going to tell you why he did that. But we're going to compare them both together, head to head. I'm also going to show you, for those of you who are here to learn about the check-go, if you have this, the instructions on this are very muddy, if not absent at all, and there's a lot of bad information out there on YouTube right now on how to use this. So I'm going to show you the correct way, and there's actually 4, maybe you could push 5 different ways that you can use this to find the balance of the golf ball. But at the end of the day, is $40, $50 better than something that's going to cost you $4, and this bag will probably last for the next 6 years. So which one's better? So before we do that, if you are a new viewer, you just found us, welcome to the community. Love to have you. We're very engaging with comments, so leave comments, ask questions. We're here to make golf somewhat understandable for you and help fill in some of those gaps that you may have. If you are a loyal subscriber, and we have a lot of you, thanks again for tuning in. I promise you're going to learn something. As always, comments are highly encouraged. I love responding back to you guys, and YouTube just released this thing called Hype. It's a little button that you can press while you're watching this video. If you're in landscape mode, turn it around. Right above comments, you can swipe over and you can hype this video, and what that does is it helps smaller YouTube channels like us get more exposure than we normally would get through just views. So it's something new they're trying out, and that just means more of you to engage with us, which is what we love. So thank you for that. Now let's head over to the bench and see which one of these two work out the best. Okay, so what we have here is our Epsom salt and water solution and our check-go. Now what you want to do with the Epsom salt, if you do want to go this route, this will last in an airtight container for a couple months at least. You can keep this. You don't have to toss it out in the trash or down the drain when you're done. It will hold. When you're doing this, the best way to do it is to use not a boiling hot water, but a warm water. So let's go back to chemistry class way back in 8th, 9th, 10th grade. There's 3 stages of a solution. There's unsaturated, which means that you can still, using this as an example, we can still add Epsom salt to this and it will totally dissolve. There's a saturated solution, which is the point where the Epsom salt will just be at its peak of not dissolving all of it. Now, you can increase how much Epsom salt you can add by increasing the temperature of your liquid that you're using. So by using warmer water, you'll be able to incorporate more Epsom salt into this, which will then make it more buoyant. And then of course there's a super saturated stage of solution where we're just about at. So at temperature, we're using warm water, we still have a little bit at the bottom. And that's what you want. You want just a little bit to where the majority of this is dissolved, but there still remains just a little bit at the bottom. And that way, you have achieved just about the perfect solution. Of course, the other way is to just put the golf ball in there until it floats. Now, when you want it to float, there's two methods of thought here. Some people say you want the level of the water to just be, you don't want any of the golf ball exposed, so to speak. Okay, I can see why you may think that's good. You're just suspending the golf ball in the space of the liquid without it breaking the surface. Now, some people say that when the golf ball breaks the surface tension of the water will slightly hold the golf ball in a position that may give you inaccurate results. Honestly, I have never, ever seen that happen. I suppose in theory it's possible, but for the most part, as long as the golf ball is wet, it will rotate and come to its natural lightest point at the top if you have it at a super saturated solution. I like to have just a little bit of the crown showing because it's just easier to mark that way. I mean, the other way you're marking underwater and you got a chance of not marking the golf ball. So what we're gonna do is I have 3 golf balls here. We're just gonna do 2, honestly. I don't know what balance these are at, but we have a 2025 Titleist Pro V1, and then I picked this one out because it's interesting. This is a Srixon Q Tour or Q Star Tour, and this has the alignment on it. So the whole theory, the buying on this is you set the golf ball up this way when you putt and it's gonna roll perfectly. This is the perfect spin axis or geometric center of this golf ball. So is Srixon right? Because if this is not, this line, the split half, it may look pretty, but it means absolutely nothing, right? The same thing with Titleist. If the golf ball is perfectly balanced, then yes, the alignment line they give you is great. If it's not perfectly balanced, then this alignment line is of no value to you whatsoever. So we're gonna start with the solution because it's just the messiest. So I just use a spoon and we're gonna start with the Q Star in here and we're gonna put it in there. Make sure the ball is completely under the water. Give it a couple spins and it's gonna rotate naturally to the lightest spot is gonna be on the top. And interestingly enough, we're right on with the line. So I'm just gonna dab a little mark on here, right on that line. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. So this is where our balance point was on this test. So what we're gonna do next is we're just gonna put it right back in and we're gonna spin it across all the axes, whatever it is, and let's see where it floats up at. We are slowly coming back to that dot. So let's just spin it again and see what happens. And we are coming back to that dot. So that lets us know. Now luckily we're along the same hemisphere here. So we're just a little bit, we're about here right now. Right, so that's our second one. We're gonna do it a third time. We're gonna really spin it. It already wants to come up to the top no matter what. So this golf ball would fall right now into the category. Remember, there's 3 categories of balance in terms of golf balls. There's golf balls that are not in balance at all, and these are just ones you should throw away. There's balls that are like this, where clearly there is a light side and a heavy side. And as long as you know that, you can still use the golf ball. And then there's perfectly balanced, or we'll see if we have one of those. But this one is interesting because even though it's out of balance, the gimmick of this golf ball is to line it up on the line. And you can see if we use our little Checo here, if we line this up on the line, we're right down that equator that they created for us. So this golf ball, I would absolutely use. I would know that there's definitely a high side, a heavy side, and a low side. But as I'm marking this golf ball, I mean, we don't need to mark it because it's already marked, but let's say it was not marked. You would basically just draw your alignment line right through those two spots. And see, this is why I don't like marking when it's wet, because now my marker's shot. But I would just do an alignment line just like that. Obviously better using a marker. But yeah, so this golf ball is what I would call middle of the road. Doesn't totally fail, doesn't pass with flying colors. It's right in the meaty part of the curve. Still good to use. Now, if a ball is perfectly balanced, when we do this test, it will never return back to a pole. So once you know the heavy side and the light side, simply just draw your alignment line over that, because now when you putt, you're going to be rolling over that center of mass. It's going to make for a smoother roll. Not perfect, but it will be much better than if, obviously, you did it this way. Now, let's go to the Titleist. This is brand new Titleist Pro V1 2025, literally right out of the sleeve, and let's see what happens. So it's coming to a point. I think we can mark it right about there. So we'll take this out and we will mark this. Just like so. So that was the result of our first test. We're gonna put it back in, spin it around. Now the golf ball should go nowhere near that pole, which it's not. Now it is starting to set up with, you can see the number on the top. So that would make the center somewhere here. Well, that test center somewhere here. Now if we went ahead and we did it again, we're gonna put these upside down and see how the ball balances. There's a little movement, but we'll give it a spin. We can see we're in a completely different spot now. So now we're up here. So as expected, and this is why you pay $60 a dozen for Titleist golf balls. Using the water test, came up to balance here, came up to balance here, and came up to balance here. So that would tell you that this golf ball is perfectly in balance, which means you can draw your alignment line wherever your little heart desires. If you want to use theirs, go ahead, use it, it's totally fine. If you want to do one another way, go ahead, perfectly fine. So that is the easy way. Now that method, the container, I mean, it's just a plastic container from Walmart. I think it cost $4, and that whole bag of Epsom salt, which we used maybe out of the 4 pounds, we probably used a quarter of a pound of it. Costs $4 for the whole thing. So $8 for this whole process, and then you still have probably 16 more of these that you can make using that salt solution. But this will also hold for about 3 months, totally fine, as long as it's in a container that is sealed. Checo. This might be interesting. So we have our marks that we made. I'm going to make them bigger just so there's no confusion as to which method made which. Okay, that's the Titleist. So we'll come to him in a second. Now we'll go with the Strixon. Now when you're using the Checo, as I alluded to, there are multiple ways to mark the golf ball. They have this little spot here on the side. And so many people, this is where I see they get it wrong. They spin that golf ball and then they go ahead and they mark it right there along the axis that it's spinning. So when you are doing this test to find the lightest and heaviest side of the golf ball, you do not ever use this front hole. You always use the top. Same principle as with the solution. So we're going to put the golf ball, those were our solution marks. We're going to put the golf ball in this way, and we're going to hold this down. You can see we'll hold this down, and once it stops flashing, that lets us know we've reached the peak revolutions per minute for the ball to stabilize. Now the ball may jump or wobble while it's doing this. If you hear a lot of wobbling, it's a good indicator the ball's out of balance because it can't find its center. So we are going. Now, based on what we knew with that, we should anticipate this to fall into one of the lines. Okay, so we just made our little dot on that. And as you can see, we're pretty close to one of the poles. Not as good as the solution came, but it got us pretty close. So let's move that dot down to the bottom, somewhere else. As remember, although it's out of balance, there is a distinct heavy side and light side to this golf ball, which we determined through the solution. Otherwise, if it was, I want to say, perfectly imbalanced, it would have just spun around that axis and we would have been able to dot in multiple locations, but that was not the case. So right now, it's not looking good. I hate to say it. It's trying to stabilize, but I think I know what's going to happen here. So we just marked this. And again, we're just a little bit off. Were we on? No, there's our first one, a little on the yellow, and this one a little on the blue. So 2 tests of that basically tells you that the golf ball is, it's not that it's out of balance and it's not in perfect balance, because they're still along a very similar equator. You can see towards the middle. Now it's very easy to display on this because the ball is 2 different colors. So what you would do is when you're marking this golf ball, you basically would use the one line and the other line, and then I would bisect the middle of them, which, as we found out in our solution, is this center line that they've already established. Make sense? So here's where people get this wrong. They do this, and then they don't do the top dot. They go to the side dot, and this is why I wanted to show you why the side dot is not going to help you. So we'll let this roll up to speed. Okay, and then we're going to come in through here, and we're going to mark the golf ball that way. Now what we've just done is essentially we've marked this completely opposite than the way we should have marked it. So you can see this is the way we want the ball to roll, but the way that we've marked it puts it this way. Okay? This is the way that you would want to, and this is going to confuse a lot of you, but just hang with me for a second. This is the way you would want to set this ball up off of the tee, right? Because remember how this ball was spinning. It was spinning that way. That's its natural way of it wanting to spin. As the golf ball is spinning, if we're looking at it this way, this is the way the ball comes off your club, right? It comes off the club, and this ball wants to naturally spin along this axis, right? We don't tee the ball up this way. We tee it up that way, because that's the way it's going to want to spin. When you're talking about high revolutions per minute, that's what's going to impact this golf ball. Now, when you're putting it, you're going to want to putt it along the perpendicular axis to this, which is this, because it's a low kind of inertia roll, right? It's going to rely more heavily on gravity as this ball is rolling because it's rolling slower. So it's going to allow that ball to roll over the light end, over the heavy end, over the light end, over the heavy end. If we do it the way this thing set us to do it, at high speed, which is what this thing is doing. Basically, you're talking the same speed that this would come off of a driver, right? 2,000 to 2,100 revolutions per minute. This is the way the ball is going to want to spin off your driver. If you did it the opposite way, if we set it up this way, the ball is going to want to turn and get back to that natural spin axis. So this is how you use it both ways. There's two different ways depending on what you're using it for. So putting line this way, driver line that way. Pro V1. We know that this is a perfectly balanced golf ball. So let's see. There's really no need to do this because we've already validated it, but let's see what happens. We may see that there's a fault in the check go. All right, so this is already coming up to very close to one of the dots. You can see that dot arriving there. There it is. Now kind of went away from it, right? It's finding another spot. So that lets you know right off the bat that the ball is pretty balanced. So it doesn't want to hold into that one location. So we'll just mark it here for giggles. Right there. Okay, I would assume that was the dot it was coming up to based on location. And we're going to do a different spot. And we'll see what happens. Okay, right there. So now we have multiple locations on this ball where it wants to go to, which lets us know, again, that the ball is perfectly balanced. So in this case, what I would do, I would put this in here. If you want to use this to mark your alignment line, just let it spin up however you want it to spin up. And then just put your mark on it. And that'll give you, at least you know, a nice concentric line across it. The other thing that you can use this for, if you want to draw a line, is the underneath. Most people don't even realize this has that in there. If you had a golf ball, let's say using this one as an example, that had, you know, a normal pole, it had one there, one on the other side, you would basically just align those two together and draw your line, which in this case we know is just the bisection of the yellow and the blue. But if you had it on, let's say, a ball like this, and let's say, for example, maybe this dot here was our center, and then we have another one on the other side here, right? So we have one there, we have one there. You would just hold this golf ball in there like this, grab your Sharpie, and just mark it that way. And then now you have your alignment line on a ball that is playable, but not perfectly balanced. So it has an easy marker at the bottom of it. Most people don't even realize that. And all we simply did to mark that is we aligned the one dot, which was right here, to the other dot, which was right here. And you can simply see that if we put this line back, there's the one dot right here. And as we go along, there is the other dot. And that gives you your alignment line. All right, so to wrap this up, you have two completely different methods that you can do this process. I think both of them are viable. They both do almost the same thing. There are benefits and cons to both of these. I'll go through these quickly. Obviously, the water solution. The benefit, it's fast, it's easy, and it's cheap, right? The problem with that, the only problem, is that it's messy. Fast, easy, cheap, and messy. That sounds like a great Friday night to me. But when we look at the more modern solution, the Check-Go, we get a little bit more information. It does everything that the solution does. It gives us our light axis or our light pole, and it lets us know what our heavy pole is. But it also, like I said, you can use this for putting and driver, whereas with the solution, it's really primarily just driven towards putting. It gives you a physical light spot and heavy spot, and you just bisect that, and that is the line that you should be rolling your putts on. Because at that slow speed and distance, it is going to be magnified more if the ball is out of balance. This, on the other hand, does that, but it also throws in another little wrinkle of where your ball wants to naturally migrate to at high RPMs, which, as you saw in this case, was different. So when you're hitting your driver, that's coming off at 1,800 to 2,500 RPMs, right? If you're a slicer, it's coming off a hell of a lot more than that. But you're at speed, the same speed that this is spinning it. So it didn't want to spin it along the pole, right? At speed, this golf ball is not balanced on the pole for speed. It's balanced this way for speed. So, two completely different alignment lines depending on which club you're using. I think that's also beneficial because now you know what's your putt line and what's your driver alignment line or your off the tee line, whatever it is, because it may not be the same. Now, if your golf ball is perfectly balanced like the Pro V1, guess what? You ain't got to worry about it. You just line it up wherever you want and you just go and you do your thing. So I guess there's a benefit to buying better quality golf balls, as we all probably already knew. But there is still a way. I mean, this is a Srixon Q-Star Tour. So this is not a cheap golf ball. This is probably in that mid-tier range of $35 to $40. It's not a $60 a dozen golf ball like a Pro V1, but still, I would have expected a little bit more for this. But for what they're advertising it for, remember, this is alignment for your putting. Does the job. So there you go. You make the decision which one is better for you. Cost-wise, obviously this is more expensive. The other one's a little more cheaper. This does a little bit more, and it's a lot less messy. But it's up to you guys. There you go. There's the data. You make your choice. You make your decision. And until next time, make sure that you swing as hard as you can, just in case you hit the ball. G2 out.